Hi, my name is Peyton Cook, and I teach the Sunday drawing classes at the Ann Arbor District Library. And this class is offered as a partnership between the Ann Arbor District Library and the Ann Arbor Art Center, both located right downtown Ann Arbor. And we do a variety of different classes, sometimes ranging in just simple drawing techniques, other times art movements within art history, a lot of variety. And today we are going to be talking about Impressionism. So I want to first start by defining what an art movement is. So an art movement is a category that's assigned to artworks that share the same artistic ideals, style, technical approach, and they of course would also fall in the same time frame. So these are two examples of Impressionist paintings, and you can see a similar style, I think, with both of these pieces here. Now, art movements are usually named after art critics or historians, and their titles are often very witty or sarcastic. Sometimes they're nicknames that were pulled from a bad review. And so Impressionism started in France when a group of very talented artists became disinterested in what was going on artistically at that time. So they came together and worked on paintings that were more about color and light instead of the current realistic style. So when they exhibited their work, a critic mocked them actually and called them the Impressionists after one of the paintings in the show that was called Impression's Sunrise by Claude Monet. So Impressionism was a movement about color and light. And there were several different artists that we can see that were part of this movement. And here, Mary Cassatt, Manet, Pissarro, Renoir, Degas, Monet. There were others as well. These are just some of the key artists that most people will think of that associate with Impressionism. So I want to also just give a framework here for when this took place, okay? So Impressionism began in the 1860s, but it was really most popular in the 1870s and 1880s. And the established art community was actually outraged when these young Impressionist artists held their own exhibition in 1874. As the annual exhibition in Paris was well established and respected, and only those who were approved were shown. So the Impressionists would have never been admitted. So some key ideas that we can see throughout this art movement. So Impressionism began in Paris, France, and at the time Paris was changing. So Impressionists rejected the government-sanctioned salons that those were the places that art was being exhibited. And so they were totally rejecting that whole idea. And they also were they rejected, or these artists were rejected for breaking with contemporary standards, which favored smooth blending and a strict adherence to naturalism, depicting a nature more objectively rather than subjectively, meaning showing it to be pretty realistic. So this was really the beginning of modern art as we know it. So this was very new. It was a revolutionary idea. And we would see these, just large kind of brush strokes of paint, blobs of paint layered on a canvas to summarize forms rather than small brush strokes that show these details of forms. So the focus was on lively moments rather than still contemplative scenes. The colors were brighter and lighter. We don't really see many dark colors. And the Industrial Revolution had a massive impact on the Impressionists. So we see a lot of that influence of the Industrial Revolution in the paintings. In this Monet painting, for example, we have a train station. So that one's pretty straightforward, but still, it's very evident, obviously. And the technological advances meant that artists now had paint in tubes as well. So for the first time ever, which is really cool. They were no longer confined to easel painting in their studios, so they could take their little paint kits outside and paint in plain air. So we see that as also a really common theme among a lot of the Impressionist artists is we're seeing artists that are painting outside. So other technological advances gave them access to a whole world of new colors. So you can see these examples here. Now, Monet is really famous for several of his paintings, but the Water Lilies series, I believe, is one of the probably most well-known series in modern art. And Monet and the Impressionists used short textural brushstrokes, and so you can really see that here. They did not mix colors on a palette, and they would just mix those colors, those paints, directly on the surface of the canvas, creating a soft focus. In this Renoir painting, notice the light shining through the trees and casting light and shadows on the figures. It's beautiful. Manet was another Impressionist artist, and Manet and other artists were part of the Salon des Refuses, which was formed as a response to being rejected from the official salon. So many works were rejected because of the subject matter and themes surrounding the pieces. This piece is an example of this. The fact that there were clothed men and unclothed women lounging outside, having a picnic, particularly that the women were not classical depictions of the nude, was too unconventional. Therefore, it wouldn't have been accepted to a traditional salon. This is another example of a piece that would have otherwise been rejected had it not been part of this show that was simply just of rejected work because, again, because of the subject matter. So this piece, has the subject that's this anonymous bartender, and that so much of the canvas and artistic attention are given to the scene. That just would have been outrageous at the time. Degas is another well-known impressionist, and he created several of these paintings or pastel drawings of dancers, and he created paintings that look very spontaneous. They appear to be similar to a candid photograph, and it looks like a snapshot that was just captured really quickly when no one is posing. So at this time, again, critics hated what they saw. So these dancers, the fact that they looked like regular people in not the best pretty poses, look at this figure here on the far left. This would be an example of why they wouldn't have liked this. So it's more of a backstage scene rather than a still depiction of the dance on the stage with all of the formal costume and makeup and lighting that they had come to expect. So you can also see visible brushstrokes as well as paint colors mixing on the canvas rather than pre-mixed on a palette. And these qualities that we admire today were such a clear lack of skill to the audience at the time that they couldn't bring themselves to appreciate it. They only had disdain. Monet is really known as a painter of light. He was determined to capture the light as he saw it in each moment. Seeing the many different versions of light that Monet sought to capture helps to illustrate his thought process and reasoning for his work. So Monet would paint one subject many times over, always focusing on the effects of light and the changing atmosphere. So they say that he would paint on one canvas for 7 to 8 minutes and then switch to another one to record a different aspect of the lighting. His paintings are also very thick with paint since he would work over and over on them. And the Impressionists really loved to just capture daily life. So they painted whatever they saw and found interesting. Here in this painting, Manet is painting a fellow artist working on a portrait. So we can see this painting of Claude Monet in his studio boat, which was an oil on canvas, painted in 1874 by Manet. And when we examine the surfaces of the paintings closer, we can really see how much of a summary that we're seeing that the artist created using big brushstrokes and blocks of colors. Now, at first glance, this painting looks like it has a smoother, maybe more acceptable style, but the subject matter was the big thing that would have probably horrified critics. It is a rainy, dingy, maybe dirty city street, and it's just regular people walking down the street. Not to mention, when you get closer, this painting really isn't actually blended that smoothly. So, once again, we see an example here where we just see these scenes of daily life. So, some painters depicted their friends at bars or dancing, while others, like Mary Cassatt here in this, the artist that painted this painting here, painted a lot of domestic scenes like these. So, the subject matter is humble and sweet rather than slick, impressive, and monumental as would have been expected for this time. So I would encourage you to do a drawing today or even a painting of scenes that are around you, or maybe even a photo of something that's near you if you are stuck at home and you don't have maybe the best view outside. And what I would like for you to do is try to use this idea that the Impressionists have of creating a work of art focusing on color and light. And you can look at this demo that I'm doing here to see how I'm keeping the composition really simple. That's mainly just for the sake of doing a quick demo, but you can see at least how I'm layering colors directly on the canvas or paper and then just letting them kind of mix optically rather than mixing them, on a palette, for example, first. And I'm also keeping a really loose style. I'm not being overly realistic. I'm keeping it really light, loose, big marks. So have fun creating this, and I hope you tune in next week.